Well, we come to the end of Easter proper today. At least it's the sixth Sunday of Easter. Next week we'll be celebrating the Ascension, which would have been normally Thursday this week. So we look at the development of the Easter season, and we of course celebrate Jesus' life, death, and his resurrection. And today, before we leave the Easter season, we look at and how do we as a people live it out. Because certainly, anytime you have basically two people get together, you stand the possibility of conflicts, and that multiplies as the numbers increase. And so you can imagine today we've got 6 billion people on the earth. 1 billion of those are Catholic. How do you maintain this unity, the peace that Jesus prayed for and called for? Well, he gave us a church really that is, as much as we don't like to hear that word, hierarchical. We see that in two ways today. In the gospel, we see it, Jesus himself saying, the Father is greater than I. Well, in what way? Jesus and the Father are equal. There's only one God, the Trinity. They are all consubstantial with one another, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so he means, in other words, I do what the Father has me. He's got a role within this being. Same as we do when we say we're body, soul, and spirit. We try to subject everything to the Spirit, not just to what the body wants, do we? And so we look at how we're made like God in that sense. In the second reading, if you paid attention, again from John, the book of Revelation, you would think that we would say we're built on the foundation of the Israelites, right? No, it wasn't described that way. The Israelites are described as being on the foundation of the apostles. The apostles are the foundation, the new covenant. And that comes to play as what we look at now in the first reading we're going to focus on today. How does the church handle problems? How do we guarantee that we're going to maintain the unity that we're called to? And we saw the example of, again, Paul being in Turkey, an area where Gentiles are coming into the church. And the Gentiles, of course, they're not circumcised. The Jews are. But for Jews, and especially if you think about Jewish men who had gone from being a Gentile to becoming a Jew, having to be circumcised as adults, and now they're seeing, oh no, Christ is the way. For them particularly, it's like, wait a minute, you all convinced me of this, and for 1,500 years, Jews have had to practice circumcision. Matter of fact, it was so serious that what? In Genesis it says, unless one is circumcised on the 8th day, he shall be cut off from his people. Such a one does not belong. Not on the 5th day, not on the 9th day, but on the 8th day. He must be circumcised. So Jews said, we practiced this all these years. We can't change now. God has demanded this of us. And now we hear Paul saying, no, that's not the new covenant. The new covenant is made not in the blood of circumcision, as Hebrews tell us, but in the blood of the Lamb, the blood of the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ that we share at this altar. And so we look at that new covenant and say, all right, how do we solve this problem? Now, Paul, as you know, experienced Christ outside. He never knew Jesus in the body. Paul experienced Jesus on the road to persecute other Christians. And what happened? He had personal experience with Christ. Christ personally infused him with the knowledge that he'd been teaching the other apostles over years. And so what does Paul do? As an example, he goes to Peter. He says after 7 years, he went to Peter to check out what he had been teaching. Now, at the end of next month, we'll look at the chair of Peter, Peter's sole role within the church. And today we look at the work of the bishops together, the ecumenical work. So we think of Paul checking with Peter at that time, and again, what does he do? He says, wait a minute, we got this big dissension among us whether circumcision is important or not, and it was, but we need to go to Peter and the others and find out. And that's where we're at today. Now, is it done as democracy? No. Again, it's Peter who speaks after consultation with the others and says, no, this is no longer necessary. No longer necessary. So it's what we call the First Council, the Council of Jerusalem, around 64 AD. We have now had 21 ecumenical councils throughout these centuries. As we look at the gathering of bishops to decide what is the will of God. We heard Jesus say, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and he will tell you all things that you need to know and remind you, as well of what I've taught you. So you have both things going on. And so the church has always lived with an awareness that the Holy Spirit is present in it, and that the Holy Spirit is active and alive and will guide. So we see this event going on, and it will continue to go on that way. As we know, the first council after that would not be until around 325 AD, when Christians were able to come out from persecution, and there were several issues going on by that time, where they're looking at, Arian. Arian was a priest, but Arian started teaching that Jesus was not fully God and man. I said, wait a minute, that's not right. So they said we've got to do something about it. And then you had Nestorius, who also was a priest and saying Jesus was not fully God and man. But Nestorius and Arian were supported by the emperor. Often you're going to find it's political power that supports which direction the people go. So we have this happening for several hundred years. Thank God, Nestorius and Arians finally came to an end. Even though at one point there were more Arians in the world than there were Christians. So we find this event in 325 AD. The bishops, who have now recognized their ongoing succession to the apostles. That's why there's a piece of paper there right by the baptistry, if you like, showing you, the fathers of the church and those who are connected directly with the apostles. People always like to skip over that group of Christians. But if you ever have a question about what have Christians always believed, and you don't find it in the Bible, you don't find it in the apostles, then look at those whom the apostles taught, who carried on this faith that we have. So we say there's a definite connection throughout the centuries in apostolic succession. But anyway, in 325 AD, they created one thing that you and I will shortly profess. What is that? The Nicean Creed. That every Christian in the world holds to. No matter what denomination they claim to. By the way, that denomination, that means we're part of something else, right? We're a part of. Catholic Church is the fullness of faith. We're not a denomination. It just surprise you on that. We're not a denomination. And if you look, almost everyone, when they want to tell you about what they believe, they say, well, unlike Catholics, this is what we believe. It is the source, it is the landmark for what Christians fully believe. So we created the Nicean Creed for all to say, these are basic. So we hold to. But now by the time of the Nicean Creed, 297 AD, these same bishops had already said, now these are the books of the Bible. Now these are the books of the Bible. Nothing is to be added, nothing is to be taken away. That's why Revelation is where it is in the gospel. It says nothing can be added, nothing can be taken away. And so we find that the Bible is established. And there will be now a number of other councils dealing with, many of them, whether Jesus is God and man, and in what way. Is Mary the mother of God? Yes, she is. And all Christians have to hold to that. You won't find that in the Bible. But it's necessary that we know and teach that if we hold the fullness of faith. And all Christians do, except Mary is the mother of God. But then we come up to where there was a big separation, and that's what? Around 1432, Martin Luther, again, just as we hear in today's reading, there were some who were not sent by us teaching things that are creating disturbance. And so when you have that happen, what do? You go back to the apostles, the bishops, and say, what's the answer here? What's the answer here? And rather than that happening, like with the Bible alone, several books were done away with, 7 books. Who did Martin Luther go to? Strangely enough, he went to the Jews to ask them. That's who Paul was saying, no, we don't ask the Jews, we ask the church. That's where the Spirit dwells, is within the church. But it's just a strange irony in context with today's reading. We don't go to the Jews to say, what do we believe? What do we know? We go to the church and ecumenical councils. And as we listen to that guidance of the church throughout the centuries, you and I know, we know with certitude, when we listen to those councils, the Pope who professes them, proclaims them, that we are and will remain in union with all that Christ calls us to. And only in that way can we expect there to be the unity of Christians that Jesus prayed for so much in the Gospel of John. So today, as we come to the end of this this Easter season, we reaffirm our faith. And today during the Creed, I said we pray a little slower. It's really not a prayer. That we say it a little slower, because this is what we use as a way of checking all other teachings. Do they fit within the Creed? If they don't, they're not Christians. They're not Christians. That's simple. So let us now, as God's people, stand and profess that creed of our faith.